Hello, friends, and welcome back to Jank Diver Gaming. Tim, the usual host of our show, is unable to make it tonight. Him and his family are not feeling so well, but I've got a good friend of the podcast, and I guess now permanent collaborator, Daneelius, our peasant specialist here, and we're going to do another tier list. You guys seem to really love the white 2-drops tier list, so we are going to talk about some blue 2s, and maybe we'll just make our way through each of these colors.
Absolutely excited. The people continuously demand more tier lists we have to provide.
Tier lists are the way of the future and the past. Everybody loves tier lists, it just immediately triples your viewership or something. Just want to throw a quick plug. Remember, you can, if you like what we talk about here and you want to come talk some more or play some of the great cubes we talk about, you can find us on the Jank Diver Gaming Discord. That will be located somewhere in the information of this video. As a lot of y'all know, I am much, much less meticulous when it comes to this sort of thing than Tim. So, Daneelius, what do you say we get talking about some cards?
I love it. Let's do it.
All right. So, first one's up's a banger here. So we've got how many blue 2s did you come up with?
Yeah, so this is 42 drops. These are all on Arena. We should say that right at the start. There's I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 non-arena 2-drops that I saw that might have been worth talking about if we were expanding beyond the arena card pool, but nothing major. I don't think you're going to miss out on much if you're a paper player. I tried to really scour the internet looking for anything that people play, basically, and then some number of cards that people don't play that maybe you might consider going forward. So yeah, 40 is fewer than the 50 I think that we had for the white, or 55 or 60 that we had for the white.
To be fair, there are fewer good blue cards than there are white cards.
Well, and that's the main issue there is just that blue just doesn't have nearly as strong creatures. So that's natural that we'll have fewer cards to talk about. And we've gotten a number of really, really good blue 2s over the last couple of years that I think are going to be pretty exclusively taking up the S and A tiers. But just briefly to go over the tiers, as Teld mentioned before we turned on the recording software here, he just goes by vibes, but I'm going to be very scientific about this. S, I'm saying, means I pretty much think all Peasant Cubes should be running these. A is cards that I think most Peasant Cubes could or should be running these, but maybe not all. B are more for role players where you're never going to be surprised to see the card in a cube, but you're not going to be surprised to not see it in the cube either. C's are more niche role players where you really need to see something specific going on in the cube, some specific synergy that you're looking to leverage before you play the card, or maybe you're intentionally trying to de-objectify your cube or whatever. And then D's are cards we're really saying probably shouldn't be played, though there's always a reason somewhere for any card to be played in your hearts, I suppose.
Cool. So starting off, we've got Mischievous Mystic, and I can actually read this without having Daneelius read the script. Mischievous Mystic is a 2/1 flyer, and I'm not going to say for 2. All these are for 2. I will mention if it has a mana value that is like blue or something. And it's a human wizard. It has flying, and when you draw your second card each turn, you make a 1/1 flying fairy creature token straight to S tier. This card's awesome. This card's so powerful that we play it in our mainline cube. I play this in commander decks. Just a really, really good card. This not being the Modern Horizons 3 card is actually a little surprising. Yeah, this card is so powerful. I don't really even know what to say about this one, other than it's just obviously the best blue 2 on the client, I think.
I think there's one card that has an argument, but the only thing I'll say is, I've heard rumblings from some folks that they've been unimpressed with Mystic lately. Personally, I think that that's more a blue problem than it is a Mystic problem, but I think Mystic's great. And it is true, it's fragile. It has 1 toughness, it costs 2 mana, it will die all the time, and the tokens that it makes will die to sweepers, so there is a fail case here for sure, but all these cards have fail cases to some degree. And the power potential on this is huge.
But is it a fail case when your 2 mana play demands a sweeper? Is that a fail case? If I get a mini sweeper, a fire magic or something with my Mischievous Mystic, then I'm super happy with that. As a general rule.
Just before this, I went back and looked at the successful blue decks that I've seen in my cube over the course of the last year. And generally what I found is either they're playing Mystic, they're Mystic decks, or they're hardcore control decks that are really mainly playing blue for counter spells and card draw. I think if blue is the primary thing you're doing, where you're putting blue power and toughness into play, Mystic is the reason to do it, in my opinion.
Cool. Do you want to take it from here? I think you've got the cards pulled up to talk about it. I might hop in on some of these that I just absolutely 100% know what they do, but we're going to try to read all of them out, even though presumably they're going to be posted right there on your screen for you to read.
Aether Swooper, this is a 1/2 flyer. And it's a Vidalcan Artificer, and it says when it enters, you get 2 energy, And when it attacks, you can pay 2 energy. And if you do, you get a 1/1 colorless servo token. I don't play this one. I don't see this played extremely often. I will say that blue is very, very, very bad at object creation. It is the worst color at object creation, and I don't think it's particularly close. Green is maybe a little close. The reason why Mystic is so good and the card we're about to get to is so good is because they make objects. Blue doesn't have access to a lot of that. Aether Sweeper or potentially can maybe make an object, maybe 2 in some weird circumstances. Overall, I don't think that really makes it worth running, but I think it's worth at least calling out, again, due to Blue's struggles at making objects.
Yeah, I think I want to put this in the C tier. I think in order to make this card work, it does just work. Like, you can just play it. It's a 1/2, and it'll make a 1/1, buddy. I do think to put this card to justify the slot in the cube, though, you're going to want to take advantage of energy, artifact creation, or both. And so if you're doing one of those 2 things, you care about artifacts quite a bit, or you can make energy with stuff like Tune the Narrative or some of these other energy cards that are a little more parasitic, I think then it's a really interesting card. This card was really good in Kaladesh Draft, but I mean, that's also a really old set, and it also was a format that energy, this card can make 2 or 3 servos over the course of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be able to attack to do anything at all. So I personally, I mean, yes, you're correct that I think in an energy cube or a cube that supports energy, it definitely is getting played. So maybe for that reason, you're putting it in C. I don't really see a lot of energy cubes where that's a real archetype. So I'd be personally fine even putting it in D just because I don't really see how that's going to work. On the other hand, MH3 had energy in it, and MH3 has a lot of busted cards. So you can probably justify an energy sub-theme in your cube if you wanted to.
I think I want to put this in C tier just because, like you mentioned, blue's really bad at object creation, and I'm not gonna put a card that is capable of a 2-for-1 or more into Stinky Poo Poo tier. And I don't really consider the hoop of having to attack on a blue flyer to be a huge hoop. I get it is a hoop you have to be able to do, but I don't consider it some sort of insurmountable or even particularly notable thing that you have to accomplish there. What do you do when you have a card that is like kind of a strictly worse version of another card, but is still really good?
I just disagree with the framing that it's strictly worse. I know where it's coming from, but so next we have Emrakul's Messenger. This is a 2/1 flyer. It's actually technically colorless because it's devoid. It's an Eldrazi Fairy Rogue, and it says whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token with sacrifice this creature, add a colorless mana. So very similar to Mystic. Mystic makes 1/1 flyers, and Messenger makes 0/1 Eldrazi spawn. So personally, it's a personal take. I would put this straight to S. And again, I don't think it's very close. I think that Mystic is pretty clearly one of Blue's top 3 or 4 2-drops in Peasant. That being said, I understand a lot of folks who, if they think or if they see this as being just a worse version of Messenger, then they're not going to run it. And for that reason, okay, maybe it needs to get bumped down to A. But in terms of just what the card is doing, like if Mystic doesn't exist, then I think Messenger is clearly an S. And so from that perspective, I'm pretty happy to put it in S. Beyond that, I think that these cards both existing in the same cube really gives Blue more of an identity. It, again, helps Blue with one of the things that Blue is very worst at, object creation. Also, mana production is really nice. So I like this card a lot. I think it does actually have different play patterns than Mystic because it works way better in a black space where you care about sacrificing your creatures. So I like this card a lot. To me, it's an easy S, but I can imagine putting it in A.
Yeah, I want to put this in A. And it's not just that it's strictly worse. Like, I think there's an argument there that is not necessarily valid, but I think the reason I want to put it in A is that I see at least 3 other cards I want to put in S, and I just am a big stickler for tier lists having a bit of forced distribution. If your S tier has, 15 cards out of 40 or whatever, then like the vibe of the tier list gets off. Again, maybe it should be played in every cube, but that's why my S ranking is a little different than yours. I think S tier should be reserved for the best of the best, and I don't think you can. I don't consider Messenger quite as good as a couple of other cards on this tier list. I think if you're cool with A, I think top of A. I think it is really good and it's really close. And maybe at some point we look at the tier list and we decide we get the right other card in S tier, and that would probably be like right on the cusp. Would be where I would want to start it there.
Yeah, I'm fine with giving it a Jank Diver A as long as the listeners understand it's a Daneelius S, like a bullet, not even close. All right.
So next up is Shoreline Looter. This is one of my favorites. This is a 1/1 unblockable creature. When it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card and then discard a card, unless you have Threshold, which is 7 or more cards in your graveyard, in which case you just draw a card. Straight to S?
Yeah, easy S. And I think that this, for me, is the card that has the best case for being the best Blue 2-drop over Mystic. The biggest problem with this card is that when it dies, it's a big issue. When Mystic dies, it's probably made you at least one, maybe two other creatures. Looter hasn't done that. Now it's helped you filter, which is nice. Maybe it came down really late in the game and it actually drew your cards. I've seen Looter run away with games, so its power potential is really, really high. But its fragility, I think, matters actually a little bit more than Mystic's fragility, and so that is the reason for me why it's not the number 1 2-drop. But I think it's right up there.
Yeah, I'm really high on Shoreline Looter. I really think this card is great. I've argued to play it in our mainline cube. I think it might be better than some of the looters we're running, and we are super high on looters in that cube. I think the thing is, it's weirdly enough, the thing at Peasant that has me slightly lower on this card, and Mystic does suffer from this too, we talk about it all the time, that 1 toughness is not nothing. And when Mystic eats a 1 toughness removal spell, it's not really that big of a deal because oftentimes you can pair it with a draw on the turn you play it to get a trigger. But if you're Shoreline Looter, you play it and then it gets Playful Shoved. I mean, that's a pretty big swing. That's not nothing. If it gets Atsakan Archer, that's a big deal. Like, there's so many ways to kill this at a mana value or like a card economy positive way. It's still incredible. It's still awesome. You're still always playing it, but that 1 toughness here is doing a lot of damage on a card, given that it doesn't have an ETB or like a reliable way of generating card advantage the turn you play it.
And one quick note here is that I have seen Looter Ilkor, which is one of the paper cards that you could have maybe thrown on this list. I've seen Looter Ilkor in a few lists on CubeCobra and around the internet, which is effectively this exact same card, except for it can never draw a card. It only loots. It can never reach the state where you're just drawing off of it. And it has Shadow, which is a downside compared to this card, which just can't be blocked. This card can still block, and that card can't block. I don't really understand, even if you're trying to play with simpler cards, for instance. Well, this card is probably simpler than Looter. It doesn't say Shadow on it, which doesn't have. So I don't really understand why you would ever play that card versus this card. So maybe those cubes just haven't been updated lately. I don't know, but
yeah, I assume it's either like a nostalgic attachment, right? They aren't keep updating their cube, or they really like this card because it's a classic. Or the other thing I could think of is maybe they're really committed to trying to have some sort of like reanimator graveyard strategy, and they've coped themselves into thinking that looting is an upside over just drawing cards. Just draw your cards and cast them.
They don't want to hit the threshold. Yeah, I guess. Right.
Just draw your fatty and cast it because the looter's drawing you a bunch of extra lands.
Fair enough.
All right. Another banger coming up here. I don't think this one's quite as good, but I do love this card.
Yes, this is Canyon Crab. It is a crab, and it's a 0/5. It's got a huge butt, and it has a 1 and a blue. It gets +2, -2 until end of turn. And then it says at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast anything this turn from your hand, specifically, which could matter in Cube, then you get to draw a card and discard a card. So this is a looter also. It's a 0/5 looter that can also grow, but the loot does have a condition. On the one hand, on the other hand, it can loot. I can't really loot the turn it comes into play unless you cast it off of exile, I suppose. So that's not really a thing. But I love this card. I think this card is criminally underrated and underplayed. I think that one of the things that Blue struggles the most with in Modern Limited in general is the early game. This is why Quench variants have been so strong in Retail Limited, according to the data, for like every set over the last 5 years practically, is just because Blue desperately needs good opening hand cards that can just come down and reliably trade for your opponent's resources. And Crab is so good at that. The number of times I'm playing an assertive deck and my opponent goes turn 2 Crab, and it's like, not only can I not attack past that, there's not even a lot of removal in my deck, maybe if I'm playing red, that can deal with it at all. And the fact that then in the late game you draw this and it's not just a 0/5, it's a quite a relevant attacker potentially, on top of the fact that it's giving you this passive looting that doesn't require you to tap, doesn't require you to deal combat damage, just sits there doing it. The thing it requires out of you is that you pass. And yes, that is a requirement, but there's plenty of blue decks that are set up reasonably well to do that. So personally, I would put this in A. I think that the majority of cubes should be running this. I could see maybe an argument for B, but I think that people need to understand how good this card is and play with it more often. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, I waffle between A and B here too. I think I like A because I really like this card and I think it's really good. I will say the asking you to just pass in Modern Magic is that is a bigger hoop than asking you to attack or asking you to draw a card. It is a bigger hoop. And that's my hesitancy, is that like there's a lot of decks that like you'll put Shoreline Looter, Mischievous Mystic in almost any blue deck. Maybe your most controlling decks don't want Mischievous Mystic, but I assume even they probably are fine with it. I can see a lot of blue decks in a hypothetical world where blue is doing tempo stuff that don't want this. But also, the crab just does so many things. I'm cool with A, I think. Maybe we readjust, we take a look at the, like I said earlier, maybe we take a look later on the tier list. But crab just feels like, I mean, we played this in our mainline cube for a while, and it was actually pretty decent. Like, it wasn't a forever card or anything, but it did do what we asked of it, which was like come down and give control deck some breathing room.
Yeah, if you're playing tempo, you're right. Not an ideal card, but I think for any blue deck that isn't trying to win through attacking, and curving out and attacking, this card is fantastic. So it's our tier list. I say we give it an A.
I think seeing some of the middling cards that are coming up that I don't necessarily want to jam straight into D tier, I think I want to leave some room down near the B and C tier for cards that are like
Sure.
that probably fit that. I think Crab is definitely on the upper end of cards you can play in Peasant. Speaking of cards that are not. Oh
yeah, Merfolk Looter.
Man, a classic. Was this card in alpha? Is this an OG?
I think so. Yeah.
So Merfolk Looter, if you've been living under a rock, is 1 in a blue for a 1/1 Merfolk Rogue, and it taps to draw and discard a card. There are still commander decks that play this, and it is still good in those decks. There are when you get out of specifically 1v1, there come reasons where you might not want to loot on your turn and want to hold it. However, Peasant Cube is not one of those formats. I'm never putting this in a cube over Shoreline Looter, Looter Ilkor. I mean, I'm sure there are probably Canyon Crab. I'm sure there's like 4 or 5 other looters I could probably come up with that are better in Peasant Cube than this.
For 2 mana, no, for in blue, because they would have been on this list right here if they were there.
Oh, maybe.
I still think I probably give this a C, just because I can imagine if you're like really pushing graveyard synergies in your cube, be that Reanimator or Disturb or whatever else, I can imagine saying like, I want 3 looters. And if you want 3 looters, then this is probably the 3rd best 2 mana looter. So I think it's fine to put it in C, but I agree with you. I would have questions if I saw this in a cube over either of these two, for certainly.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad enough, given that this is still playable in Commander and some other formats. I do think, I'm not going to put that into like our rankings because this is for Cube, but I will say that the card is not like completely unplayable. I think being the big thing I think is like, is there a deck that you can come up with in your cube that wants to do something on your opponent's turn with a loot? Like, if you can flash in a Gissa's Bidding, and I bring that card up a reasonable amount simply because I think it's the best card of the, like, madness cards for doing stuff on your opponent's turn. Like, it and Fiery Temper are both pretty good, but Fiery Temper is just kind of generically fine, whereas Gissa's Bidding is kind of really committed to the madness bit. But, like, flashing in two 2/2s on your opponent's turn for 3 mana is, like, pretty good. It's a pretty good follow-up for the looter, and that gives you a reason to want to do it on your opponent's turn, because you can do it during combat.
Also to trigger your draw 2 matter stuff on your opponent's turn, if you have some other source of 1 draw, that could be relevant. So I don't think it's a ridiculous card. I think it's still a relatively powerful card. It's just been outclassed. So I think if you're looking to max the effect, I think it's fine.
And on the Arena client, we don't have access to Looter Ilkor, so really, you don't have as many options as maybe I was thinking about initially. You're kind of right on that. So,
but big agreed. It's nothing special these days. All right, Thopter Mechanic. So this is a human artificer 2/1. It says whenever you draw your 2nd card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Thopter Mechanic, and when it dies, you create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. I used to play this card a lot. I was never overly impressed with it. However, I will say that I kind of replaced Mechanic with the Mischievous Mystic Emrakul's Messenger package, and so I definitely have boosted up the draw 2 synergies in my environment over time, and maybe it would look a little bit better now than it used to. 2 mana die into a relevant thing is fine. It's not particularly impressive. It does make an artifact, so it has some artifact synergies.
Right.
How relevant is it that it grows from like a 2/1 to a 3/2? I would say not super relevant. It helps you trade up with some 3-drops. All right, that's okay. If you get multiple triggers on this, it starts to get appealing. But now you're talking multiple turns. Like you can't activate this multiple times in a turn. So I can't imagine going higher than C on this.
Yeah, it would be really cool if maybe this card didn't have to tap to attack, and maybe when it died, instead of making a 1/1, it could like draw you some cards. That would be really cool. This card does not do that though, so I'm fine with D. I think this, or C, like bottom of C, top of D. Like I don't think this card is completely embarrassing, and there are some cards on here that kind of are completely embarrassing. So like if you have fondness of it and want to put it in C, I don't hate that, but like I don't think this card should really see play in Cube, given the card we're about to talk about.
Yeah, so let's just talk about them together now, because they're very similar cards. Knowledge Seeker, and this came from TLA. This is a Fox Spirit 2/1, so same stat line as Thopter Mechanic. It has Vigilance, which is extremely important versus the Thopter mechanic. It has the same clause of growing whenever you draw your second card each turn, and then it dies into a clue. Now, I will say that I do think that a Thopter is better on average than a clue. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's my general feeling.
Disagree.
The main thing, you disagree? Okay, so I mean, at worst, I would say they're similar, but maybe if you think it's much superior, that's interesting. But to me, the key thing about Knowledge Seeker is that it has Vigilance. I think Vigilance is a busted limited mechanic, and I think especially on a growing creature, the fact that it has Vigilance, that's really relevant. So I would put Knowledge Seeker maybe even as high as B. And I don't really know where I put Thopter Mechanic. I think I would probably put it in D just because I don't know why I'm running it over these other options. Right. That's the main thing. So even if you're trying to push the draw 2 synergy as hard as you can, I still feel like I'm probably not running Thopter Mechanic. So I started with D, but it's not a bad card. I can imagine it going up into C, but I just can't. I don't know why I'm running it these days.
Yeah, I generally think Clue is probably better than a Thopter, but I mean, I don't think it's like wildly better at this. I just think I would, on average, rather have a Clue than a Thopter. But I agree, the Vigilance is huge. We're not on Knowledge Seeker, and it is one of the handful of cards that I'm just kind of interested in. Of the 2s that we're not playing, I do think the ones we're playing are probably all ones I would generally consider better for our environment, at least. But I do like Knowledge Seeker. I was really impressed with it in TLA draft. Just a card I played, quite a bit of in the decks I was drafting. I really liked Demir in that format, and it was just really rock solid. The Vigilance comes up a ton. I think once you get one counter on this with Vigilance, it starts to be really annoying. Because like a lot of times, like the game object decks don't necessarily want to trade off with you super early. They'd like to develop their board a little bit. So if you can get a counter on this and like force them to actually trade something off, that can be okay. I don't think either of these are world beaters, but I think Knowledge Seeker is pretty solid.
All right, we should move on, but I'm going to hold you to that Clue better than Thopter card and a couple other cards we're going to talk about. I'm pretty confident that I like Thopter slightly more than Clue. I don't think there's a huge difference, but I do think the Vigilance on this makes up for the difference in that token quality. So I don't know. This is an interesting one. We might revisit this as we go on, but actually we have another Clue maker right now.
Yeah, this card's great.
What is this card actually called? I'm trying to remember now.
Forecasting Fortune Teller. It is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 human advisor ally. When this creature enters, create a Clue token. Boy, that is a clean text box.
Very clean.
Yeah, I really like this card. I thought it seemed like super boring, but honestly, this is the exact kind of card that a lot of your controlling blue decks want. It provides, kind of like the crab, just like throws down a body your opponent's probably going to have to do something to deal with at some point. It gives you future value, in this case, actual card advantage, as opposed to the crab, which is just looting. It lets you take advantage of ETBs and do the game object thing. You can pick this up with your Skyfishers and replay it, your recursion and all that. I don't think this is like the kind of card that gets into world beater, you're a fool for not playing this card territory, but I do think it's very good. And like having played it, it is like, it might be like obviously better than Hard Evidence at this point, even though it's a little more expensive, just being able to play with what modern Peasant Cube is doing a little better.
Yeah, so one note is, imagine this said ETB make a Thopter. I think it would be clearly better, so that's why I was bringing it up. I think that would be an insane card, like 2 mana for 2/4 with the stats and
okay, you got me there. I will grant you that if this card made a Thopter token, it would be stronger.
Yeah. Another note is that, like we were saying before, blue doesn't make objects, and so getting to make objects on ETB is just very, very strong. There's almost no cards on this list that make an object on ETB other than this. So by that reason alone, in my mind, it just has to go to A. On power level, there are situations where you'll be underwhelmed by this card, but nothing here makes objects, and object creation is really important these days. So if you don't like objects, then move this down. But I think it has to get to A.
The funny thing is, even if you don't like objects, is there a blue clean text box 2-drop that just draws cards that has like this similar stat line? I don't think there is, right?
No, we'll get to a few ETB things. There's like, look at the top 3 or 4, put an instant or sorcery in your hand, that kind of stuff. Yeah. But just in terms of straight drawn cards.
Yeah, the closest I can think for this, and we'll get to it, is what is it, Philology Archaeologist? Is that the name of the card? And that card's good, but like I think it has a lot more words on it if you're trying to keep your text boxes simple.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We got a card that I don't think very many people play, and I'm curious if that should change. This is Renowned Weaponsmith. It's a 1/3. It's a human artificer. It has tap to add colorless. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or artifact abilities of activate abilities of artifacts, and then it has an irrelevant final line of text, which might be the reason why people don't like playing it. You can search a library for Heart Piercer Bow or Vial of Dragonfire, and these are bad cards for the retail limited environment. They don't really matter much here. I bring this card up because I played Oaken Siren for a bit, which is similar to this card. It's an artifact itself. It has Flying and Vigilance. It has a lot of upsides on this card, but this card has a reasonable body, and more importantly, it taps for 2. And tapping for 2 is a lot. Like, this taps to, sack your clues on its own. It taps basically any object it can pay for on its own, but it can also pay for moving equipment around. There's a number of things. Water bending on your invasion submersible. This taps for 2. There's a lot of little things that this does. So if you have an artifact theme in your environment, I think this card is actually totally reasonable. One of the things I've talked about a lot in the past is that blue has pretty bad artifacts itself, and that this is kind of what it gets. It gets a non-artifact creature that synergizes pretty well with artifacts. So I think if you're playing an artifact section, I think this is not embarrassing at all. I obviously wouldn't play it outside of a cube that has a pretty clear artifact theme.
Yeah, you'd have to be pretty deep on artifacts, I think, to want this. I think I want to go ahead and talk about Oaken Siren too, because I think it would be hard to justify this over Oaken Siren, even though you are right, 2 is a lot more than 1. People, I know you're here for the most deep takes. 2, more than 1 confirmed, twice as much, in fact. But Oaken Siren being an artifact and also attacking and also having flying and all of that, it carries a Zoetic glyph as well, and it carries it really well. We're not really on that, but I know that's a thing you like to do. So, I mean, I think Oaken Siren is probably generically better, though I guess there does come a question of at the point that Oaken Siren and Renowned Weaponsmith become cards you want in your cube, are you at the point where tapping for 2 colorless mana for your artifacts is actually just really good?
Sure, and just briefly to read Oaken Siren, this is a Siren Pirate with Flying and Vigilance. It's a 1/2, but it is an artifact creature itself, and it has tap to add blue and spend that mana only on artifacts or artifact sources. So yeah, I don't know. I agree with everything you said. Specifically, if you're in on Zoetic Glyph type stuff, then yeah, I think I would definitely prefer Oaken Siren to Weaponsmith. If you're not, then I don't know, man. 2's a lot of mana. 2's a lot. This blocks way better on 2 than Siren does. This just happens. There's a lot of things that cost 2 mana to activate. This handles it all itself. So I don't know. I'm going to put Oaken Siren above it, but I think that both have an argument.
Yeah.
In an artifact cube specifically.
Yeah, let's go ahead and just keep talking about the artifact niche cards here. And this is Glint Nest Crane. It is flying and a 1/3 bird. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is look at the top 3 cards of your library and you can put an artifact into your hand. Top 4? Top 4 cards of your library and you can put an artifact into your hand.
Yep.
Yeah, I think if you're on the artifact thing, I mean, this is cool. It's no, what is the name? Is it Ingenious Smith? Is that the name of the card that's really good? And I don't know how many hits. My problem with these kind of cards, particularly in Peasant, is I wonder how many hits you have to have before they are reliable, and I feel like it's got to be more than I'm willing to put in my deck.
It's a whole lot. This is the comment I made about Ingenious Smith in the White Peasant 2-drop video, is that you just need more than you think. That's the main thing. Like, I think if you have 10, you're still not even 80%. You're slightly under 80, or maybe you're a little over 80% at 10. Yeah. You want like at least 8, like bare minimum 8, and I think preferably 10 to 12. You can get there on these cards with artifact lands because those do have type artifact. So yeah, if you're playing artifact lands in an artifact kind of a cube, then I think this is justifiable. 2 mana 1/3, draw a card on ETB with some amount of selection, I think is definitely justifiable. Smith can kind of grow out of control potentially, but the 1/3 body starting on Glint Nest is pretty solid. So again, I would just never consider these outside of a cube that has a pretty strong artifact theme already. I have a strong artifact. That's not true. I have an artifact theme and I don't run any of these. So I think you need an even stronger artifact theme than what I have to really be excited about them. Yeah. But if you do, then I think they're all really solid.
Yeah, and blue-white in our environment is kind of soft, is like a soft artifact theme. All the game object decks are roughly artifact decks. But blue-white is kind of supported even at the gold section with artifact support, and we don't run any of these cards. You just don't have enough. A lot of the best artifact creation, the best artifacts you can get on the client are cards that are not artifacts themselves. And so you want cards that take advantage of artifacts in play, not artifacts in your hand or deck.
Yep. Totally agreed. Or artifacts entering the battlefield or whatever, tokens, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. The next card is only on because Tim asked that I had it. It's up to you whether or not we talk about it because Tim's not here.
We run this card in our Peasant Cube, and I like it, so I would like to talk about it.
No. I just mean, is it a 2-drop or not?
Oh, does it count?
Yes. Tim said it did. So
not really. However, it does have only 2 mana pips in its cost. So let's go ahead and talk about this. It is benevolent. Wait, did we talk about Guardian of the Great Door on the White episode?
we did not. No.
Okay.
But I don't think that's. I don't know if I would say that that's good enough to talk about. Whereas this actually might be good enough to talk about. But
might be. We ran Guardian of the Great Door for a while. I really do love unearthing a 4/4 flyer. But you know what I love more is unearthing a 4/5 flyer that scries 2 and has was it Ward 2, Ward 3?
Yeah, so this is Benevolent River Spirit. It's blue for a 4/5 creature spirit. It has an additional cost to cast a spell, Waterbend 5, which is where this is like maybe a fake 2-drop. Waterbending, if you recall, is you can tap a creature or an artifact or land to pay for that cost. And then it has flying and Ward 2, and when this creature enters, scry 2.
Yeah.
So you guys have been playing it. You tell me how you feel about it.
I've seen it play a few times. I think I drafted a deck with it, and I want to say it was good. I mean, I haven't. It's not a freebie, but I mean, it's a lot of stats. And I think unlike Guardian of the Great Door, this was a good use of Ward because you have to put quite a bit of resources into playing this. But this is where when we talk about object creation, these are the kind of payoffs they're giving us now. And like, this is a note. Like, if you could imagine a world in which every blue card in your cube created 2 rectangles. I know boomers at home, close your ears. You know, this horror story is not for you. Just it doesn't exist. But let's say roughly every card you play make 2 objects, 2 artifacts. This card gets there pretty quickly, right? Like in a hypothetical world where blue is doing this as well as white. You know, I think this is a card that is a little before its time. And I suspect by the time it is its time, we'll get a power card version of it. But I like the card, and we're going to continue running it because it's really cool. I think it's a sneaky gold card, though. I think you want to be playing this with white cards, ideally, and then it's got like blue, and the mana cost. I do not think this is a good blue card per se. Because if you're having to actually tap mana, a bunch of mana to cast this, or if you're having to tap a bunch of creatures, I don't really love it. Though, like we did mention, Mischievous Mystic and Emrakul's Messenger do make bodies that you can tap with Waterbending. Forecasting Fortune Teller does tap. They're giving blue some of these cards that care about making game objects. I think this is a card that's getting easier to cast with every set, and it is really powerful. Like 4/5 flyer, Ward 2, Scry 2 is kind of a crazy amount of stuff to put on a card.
Yeah, I would throw black in there as well. Black has, Unearth. Sure. It has Lively Dirge. His ways to take advantage of
absolutely.
The blue. Maybe green, because green has like, that old werewolf that you can look at the top. But is that power gated or mana value gated? Actually, now I'm not sure if that's right or not. But regardless, there's other colors can play around with the mana value on this creature, certainly. So that gives it some play. I don't know how I feel about this yet. I haven't seen it in play yet in my queue. I added it to mine as well, but I just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I definitely think we're going to be getting more and more blue object creation. So I feel like the stocks are going to be rising on this card. One quick note I just wanted to say is I don't see this as a card I would put into C, saying like, well, if your cube has a lot of object creation, it's like we're kind of as Jank Diver Gaming and co saying that you should be running object creation. It's good to run object creation.
That's the default.
We're going to assume, we're saying the default is that, and that's why I'm putting it up here in B. But sure, if you're looking to make your cube less complex, remove tokens, then this would move down here to these lower levels. But I agree with you. It's much better with non-blue cards than with blue cards, but I still think it's probably good enough.
I think I want to start this in B, and this is sort of a cowardy needs more information. My heart wants to put this in A tier. I don't think it's an S tier card. It's not going to go in every deck. My heart wants to put this in A tier because I think the card ceiling is incredible, and I love these kind of cards. I want to start it in B though, because I would not be surprised to see like the S tier cards in cubes that are depowered a little bit even. And I would be surprised to see this in a depowered cube. And what I mean by depowered in this case is that we've talked about this a little bit, and I don't know if we've ever explicitly stated it. Object creation is not a preference. This is not we like making objects because we play on the Arena client and that's fun. It is fun. That's a side effect. But if you aren't playing these cards that make game objects and make the rectangles, you are depowering your cube. You are playing worse cards because the best cards in Peasant are the cards that make a lot of objects. So yeah, I think B is where I want to start this, but like I do expect this card to get better over the next year with Especially if like Star Trek has like, phaser tokens and we get mutagen tokens out of TMNT. As these tokens pile up, even if it's only 1 or 2 cards per set that you're getting, they do add to the density and overall power of these effects.
Well, they tend to be the best, and so they tend to go into cube, like the forecasting fortune teller. So, all right, diversion unit is next. It's a 2/1 flyer. It's an artifact robot, and it has blue. Sacrifice this creature, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 3. What do you think?
Who's casting instants and sorceries in the year of our Lord 2026? We're all about those non-creature, non-instants and sorceries. I don't think this card's terrible. I think this sort of malevolent hermit style tempo counter effect, I do think it's annoying. Like, I've played against this card with cards that you couldn't cast before in your hand. You're just like, this is super annoying. But for every one of those situations that comes up, this card is just like a 2/1 flyer with no text box. So much more often. There's entire decks you'll play against that you won't have good targets for this card. I want to say D, but like if you wanted to put it into C tier for like an artifact, because it has the artifact tag in the text box, I could get it.
We're about to hit a run of 8 straight 1 in a blue 2/1 flyers. So yeah, I would definitely put this in C because I think that you do want to have some artifact synergies that you're playing with to make use of this. I like this the most out of all the artifact synergy cards here because I think it requires the least amount of artifact synergies to make work. So, but yeah, I think you want to care about the type line, I think, before you run this card for sure.
Yeah, I think the ceiling on this is lower than the other 3 cards, but I think the floor being higher here is really important given how hard it is to get through the hoop of like, I'm actually putting a bunch of artifacts in my deck.
Yep, wears the Zoetic Glyph really well, etc., etc. All right, Storm Chaser Drake is a 2/1 flyer. It says whenever it's a Drake, It's Drake.
Say Drake.
Whenever it becomes the target of a spell you control, you draw a card.
Yeah, it's in the appropriate tier. D is for Drake. I don't like this card. I thought this card was super cool when it got printed, and you think of all the cool things, all the cards you're going to be drawing, and I will tell you, the entire time I've played this card, if I've drawn more than 2 cards, I would be surprised.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say that if you have a cube with doing heroic stuff, I can imagine running it as like a C, but I don't really think that makes a lot of sense to be running right now. So it kind of similar to how I was judging some of the life gain cards in the white 2-drop set. I don't think I'd like to play a cube that's really pushing heavy enough into heroic stuff that you want like off white and off red color heroic creatures. So yeah, if I was in a cube like that and I saw this, it wouldn't shock me or anything. So I don't know. It's like high D maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say top of D. I don't think this card should be in cubes, but I like combat tricks, and cards that encourage you to play more combat tricks that do have a little bit of a soft spot, but I acknowledge this card is terrible. Like, this card is not good.
Somewhere in this bottom of C, top of D range. All right. Skyclave Aerialist. It does have green in its symbol, but it's a fake green, so it can be added here. Good luck. Can you do this one from memory?
Okay, so hold on. All right, so it's a 2/1 flyer, and you can pay 4 in a Phyrexian green to transform it, and on the backside, it's a 2/4, and you reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land, you put it into play. If it's a non-land, you put it into your hand.
That is very close. And I'm just pulling it up now because I don't want to get it wrong.
I played this card a lot in Mom Draft. This is a card that is a banger in the retail set.
Banger Mom Draft card. So yeah, the backside says, when this creature transforms, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land, put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, put it in your hand. So you don't have to reveal it, which is nice. Just it's your information only. I like this card a fair amount, except for the fact that it's almost entirely just a 2-mana 2/1. So it's like if you get to the point of the game where you're like, hey, I can flip this. I'll put my mana into it. That's great. It's just like I don't know that Peasant really works this way that much these days in the vast majority of games I see where it's like, I'm sitting here with 4 mana and nothing to do with it. It's like that doesn't happen that much.
When this card was printed, I thought this was the coolest, like one of the coolest cards. This and the 1-drop that flips into a 3/3 weird and impulse draws. Man, I love these cards. I love this entire cycle of cards that like they gave you stuff to do early game and then you could flip them for mana. But have I told you what you can do for 2 mana lately in Peasant? Okay, and this is so much more mana.
I will say I am currently playing the card. The card is in my list. The reason it's in the list is because it's a fake hybrid card, and blue-green has the worst hybrid cards on the client, and maybe in all of Magic. There's some better ones in paper, so that's the only reason why I'm playing it. I don't think it's very good, but it's kind of a fake hybrid card, and I hate blue-green's hybrid cards. So.
For what it's worth, I do think this card is better than 2 of the next 3 cards we're going to talk about.
Hey, there you go. That's exciting. All right, well, let's talk about it. So, and this is a new card, so of course I'm not going to remember the name of it. Oh, man. Let's see.
It's Twiddly Twaddly Pokey Fairy or something. It's going to be something like that.
You got it. You got it. This is Unwelcome Sprite. It's a 2/1 flyer, and it says it's a fairy rogue. Whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, surveil 2. We poo-pooed this card a fair amount in the set review. I've actually come up a little bit on it since we talked about it. And comparing it to Ilmeg Pixie, which is coming next, Pixie is very similar. It's a 2/1 flyer. It surveils on attacks, but it only surveils 1 on attacks. And the Unwelcome Sprite surveils 2 on casting a spell on your opponent's turn. So I realized that with Pixie, you play it and then you cross your fingers. And if they have their Playful Shove or whatever else, it has done nothing. Best case scenario, you untap with it, hope you have a good attack, and then you're good. You don't need any of that stuff for Unwelcome Sprite. And in fact, with Sprite, you can go turn 3, play it, and then cast your 1-mana instant spell on your opponent's turn and surveil 2. And if you think of it as like ETB surveil 2, suddenly becomes like kind of exciting. So I think this card is actually better than we were giving it credit for. I still don't think it's amazing. It's still a 2-mana 2/1 flyer. There's still infinite options for these, but this actually might, for me, be one of the better 2/1 flyers we have access to. I might be willing to put it up, up here. Like if you have a lot of instant speed stuff going on in your cube, I think it'd be totally justifiable to run this. Maybe even bottom of B, but I'm not quite willing to go that far yet.
Yeah, I'm also in the same boat in that I had kind of thought that the Pixie probably has a higher floor, which is like technically true, but the floor here is still really bad. So, but yeah, I think the thing that got me is Surveil 2 is like close to draw card. Like Surveil 2 is not quite draw card, but it's pretty close. And being able to get that value, like the turn you play it, like you mentioned, if you play this with like a cantrip or a counter spell or a removal spell on your opponent's turn, like you could get play out of that you don't get with Pixie. So I do think this card's a little better. I think Pixie's just bad. I don't think either of these cards are great, but yeah, I think if you want to put the Sprite into like that C tier, I think like if you're playing a very heavy control deck, and we talked about blue having some of these, not a horrible card. Like it's, Surveil 2 is a lot of surveilling.
Well, one specific thing that's cool with this is imagine turn 3, you play this, and then on your opponent's turn, you cast a Brainstorm or Consider or whatever. And the idea is like, this is a really nice card to play before a cantrip because you're getting that Surveil 2 off prior to cantripping. I think there's something there. So this is a card I could imagine actually coming up on. I think I might try it out just to see, and I'm going to replace Pixie with it. I'm currently playing with Pixie, but not because I think it's very good, just because I wanted more cheap blue cards in my environments.
We have one kind of weak potential spot in the cube, but I still think the card is better than how I currently rate the Pixie. So like we did pass on it. Let us know, because I think this is a card that is, if it worked out, could be interesting. Yeah. What is not particularly interesting is whatever the next card is. I know what it does, but I don't know what. I don't even remember. Daring Sky Thief? Is that the name of
it? This is a Skyship Plunderer. And it is a human pirate, and it's a 2/1. Whenever Skyship Plunderer deals combat damage to a player, essentially you can
you essentially proliferate a single card, right?
You proliferate, yes, but you proliferate
like a single counter on a single card, I believe is the way it's worded.
Correct.
Most of the time, that is actually not much worse. All right, so Thrumming Bird believers, put your fingers in your ears. Most of the time, this is not much worse than Thrumming Bird's effect, if you're getting the effect. Like, how often do you have 2 or 3 +1 counters or a bunch of counters that you're looking to proliferate of multiple different types sitting in play? Really ask yourself, how often does that happen outside of Commander?
I think Thrumming Bird is on the client, and I specifically did not include it on this list because to me it is obviously clearly worse than Plunderer. So
okay, cool. Yeah, we're on the same page there. Yeah. Most of the time, if you've got, like, I've played this card before and it actually did okay, but like when you play this card, you're +1. You're getting 1 +1 counter on a creature, and you're stacking that up. That's how this card works.
You're not doing that. That's not what you're doing. You're targeting a creature with this, and they're killing it in response, and you're getting nothing. That's what's happening.
Okay, look, I was trying to be optimistic here. I don't even. Does this work with energy? Does this do that? Can you proliferate okay. Yeah, like maybe there's something there for your energy cube where you're playing the Aether Swooper or whatever.
I guess. Yeah.
It's this card's not good. Don't play it. But like it is better than Thrumming Bird, which is a card I've seen in people's cubes. That is a dream that you are not getting to. I promise.
Bad card. Very, very bad card. Good card, though. Zephyr Sentinel.
Good card. Very good card, yeah.
2/1 flyer with flash. It's a human soldier. And when it enters the battlefield, return up to one other target creature you control to its owner's hand. And if that card was a soldier, this gets a +1/+1 counter. That is not total trinket text. There are some soldiers in Cube, but it's
Yeah.
largely trinket text. It's mostly just.
I have gotten a +1 counter on this card
There you
before,
go.
and it was sick.
There you go. Congratulations.
Do we want to go in? Do we want to talk about this card on its own merits, or do we want to jungle it with the other two cards that are in the same space as it? Kind of.
Let's just talk about this one on its own, because I think unlike the others, this one stands up on its own better than those cards do, if that makes sense. Like, this isn't, you could just play this in a blue-white flyer deck and never pick anything up with it, whereas the others kind of, I think, need you to lean more into that, you know, the bouncy castle space compared to this one.
Okay, well, the one that I'm thinking of is actually the next card in our list.
Okay. Sure.
Because I consider these very similar, even though they do different things.
Well, I would say Plume Creed's so Plume Creed Escort is the next one.
You're going Plume Creed straight to Escort. Plume Creed Escort, right?
2-mana, 2/1 flash flyer. It's a bird scout, and when it enters the battlefield, you give a creature hexproof until end of turn. Yes, I think this is definitely S tier. I think this is the best of what this instant speed mess with your opponent's stuff a little bit, and I think this one's the best of them up to this point.
To put it in perspective, we play this card in our mainline cube. I very frequently play this in a rares environment with some of the most powerful cards in Magic, and it's really good. Like, you get people all the time, and boy, does it feel good when your 2/1 flyer also eats a Doomblade. Plume Creed Escort is incredible. I think the other guy, the guy that picks him up, is Zephyr Sentinel? Is that the name of it? Yeah, I think it's good. It has more synergy opportunities than Plume Creed Escort does. So, like, I think it probably is A tier, because, like, you probably should be playing this card, at least considering it. We are off of it right now just because we got to the point where we had too many. We've talked about the bouncy castle stuff having just a little too much in the way of Core Sky Fissures, but specifically we were a little worried about having too many Chingas, too many cards that, like, bricked your opponent's removal spells. And this card does that really well, like bricking your opponent's removal spell and generating board presence. We do run Plume Creed, but we just didn't want to, like, have too many of those, and we do consider Plume Creed the better card. Once you're expanded to, like, Daneelius' size, I think this is a pretty easy include, though.
Yeah, the thing about Zephyr Sentinel is it's worse at protecting your creatures than Plume Creed, generally speaking. It's worse at doing the Skyfisher stuff than other Skyfishers because it can't pick up non-creatures. But the fact that it can do both is, for me, why I just think it's so strong. And yeah, sometimes it's a 3/2. So yeah, I think for me, Plume Creed's an easy S and Zephyr's an easy A. You know, maybe some other people, maybe Tim would put this down a block, but I feel pretty comfortable with that.
One thing, I used to play some competitive Pokemon, and one thing that's really popular there, if you've never played like Smogon Singles, which is like 1v1 6v6 Pokemon, is there's a concept called role compression. And it's the idea of, like, having one space on your team do a bunch of different things, even if it doesn't do it as well as, like, maybe something that's specialized. And that's what Zephyr Sentinel really is good at, is just kind of, it does a number of good things. It just doesn't do them quite as well as some of the other cards that, like, I'm gonna be honest, in this case are kind of better because they're so good at what they specialize in. But I will never be surprised to see Zephyr Sentinel in a pack, and I think it's a card that I like playing, and it's fun.
When comparing this with, say, Ambrosia Whiteheart or Twinga effects, is it has flying. And so I'll play this in a blue-white flying deck, even if I'm not really intending to do any bouncy castle stuff. So yeah, anyways, I like the card a lot. All right, we're about halfway done here. Next we have Hypnotic Sprite. So this is one of the blue cards on the list. It has an adventure for adventure for 2 and a blue. I can't read the adventure, so whatever, it is what it is. But what it does is it counter target spell with converted mana cost 3 or less. That's the adventure side, and the creature side is just a flyer. So it's a 2/1 flyer on the creature side. For blue, that's very, very bad, but you get the front side of this counterspell that's also very, very bad, but combined together, maybe it's not very, very bad.
I think this card, when it came out, was awesome. When this card came out in 2016, man, this was a revelation. It was like, we're getting to cast counter spells and to put them on creatures. I don't care if the creature's like not the creature. To be fair, to be clear to the audience, like blue for a 2/1 flyer, even in 2016, was not a great rate.
It's very, very bad.
It's a very bad 10 years later. Yeah. Or 20. Did it come out in 2016 or 2020? Am I getting my years mixed up? Eldraine might have been original. Eldraine might have been 2020.
Like 16. Yeah.
Hold on. I need to know.
Throne of Eldraine was 2016, I think.
I thought. Hold on. Throne of Eldraine was 2020, 2019.
Really?
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. I'm getting it mixed up with something like Kaladesh. Anyways, in any case, 7 years ago, this was not a good stat line, and it's gotten much worse since then. 3 mana for a counterspell is also not a particularly good rate. It's not gotten any better. I do think up until about the last year to 2 years, this card was pretty playable. I wouldn't be surprised to see it in a cube just because it's got a bit of momentum. It is a card that like is kind of okay in some spots. I would lean towards like C, maybe even D at this point, but like I think I want to go something above D because I think it's I do think the total package here is better than some of the other nonsense we're playing down here.
Yeah, I mean, I played with this card for a fair bit, and I took it out due to much gnashing of teeth from my players. They thought it was just utter garbage, totally unplayable after playing with it a fair amount. So that's why I personally am very down on the card and would have no problem slamming it in D. But if you like it, I mean, anywhere above D will be because you want it to be there. Because me personally, I think it is not a card I care about at all anymore. I don't care about blue for a 2/1 at all. So it's not, there really isn't modality here. In my mind, what this actually is a counterspell that then draws you this bad flyer. But the counterspell is also like very whatever. 3-mana counterspell is like, and then, okay, you draw a card, but the card you draw is not as good as the average card. And so it's like, it's not exclude. It's not anything like that. So I don't know.
I think part of maybe it's just nostalgia with this card because we played it for a very long time and you watched it go from being like a pretty good card to like a pretty bad card to terrible. Maybe you're right. I do think it's probably better than some of these like really bad cards, but I don't know how much better. Like 3 mana for a counterspell is a really bad rate.
I'll put it here. I mean, I want to respect the wishes of the other co-hosts, so it's fine. I think it's fine. I'm not willing to put it in B. There's no way it's a B.
Yeah,
like, I just can't believe that.
Yeah. To be fair, I will admit, to give Daneelius his credit, the keeping this at a D tier is more of a nostalgia for an old friend kind of deal than anything about how the card's done lately. The next card you're kind of going to get a little monologue on because I don't think we've played this card in a very long time, and I don't even know if it's crossed our minds to actually play this card.
I'm thinking I'm back.
Yes, this is Threnody Singer. It is a 1/3 siren with flash and flying. And when it enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -X, -O until end of turn, where X is your devotion to blue. So baseline with nothing else in play, this is giving -1, -O to a creature when you put it into play. This is essentially blue's FTK, is the way that I think about it, in the sense that the vast majority of the time you're casting this card, you're killing a creature. It's like a huge percentage of the time when you cast this, you're killing creatures. So why is that? Well, number one, Peasant Cube in general has been getting mana values compressed more and more over time. What that largely leads to is relatively similar power and toughnesses across the board. There's a lot of 1/1s, there's a lot of 2/1s, there's a lot of 2/2s. And as long as you're dealing against one of those, this comes down and it does kill a creature, because as long as you have anything else in play to gain block on something, you're at least presenting the ability to kill something. It has a big enough toughness on its own that it's not like you're ever getting blown out in those circumstances, because your opponent might be able to kill one of your blockers, but it's like, all right, my Singer still survives. And then there are some situations where it can eat a 6/6 or bigger because you actually have a relatively large board and you play this and can shrink something really aggressively. This combined with a couple of other blue like combat trick style cards, I think exists as a package to make it a lot tougher for a deck attacking into a blue player that has open mana. And I think that's actually really important for blue to be able to represent these cards, whether or not you're even playing with them in your deck. If the attacking more assertive mid-range deck has to think twice before they send a creature into combat, I think that's really good. And I think that this card, along with Deceive the Messenger, Cogwork, somebody I can't remember the other blue 1-drop from there we go, and then there's one more that I'm not thinking of, but there's like four cards that I play with my cube that all combined mean that when you have a 1-drop and your opponent plays their second land and says go, you're like, do I actually attack here? And it's an open question. It's similar to, I think, what's happening right now in ECL, in the new set that just came out. Everybody has a lot of instant speed stuff in this format, and it's just not exactly clear what you're supposed to be doing on turns 1 and 2 with your attack. So I think this card is awesome, and it works really, really, really well, especially maybe a better comp than what I was saying, FTK before. The 3-mana reach creature that you like that enters the battlefield and deals damage.
Atakan Archer, yeah.
This is blue's Atakan Archer for 2 mana because it's a 1/3 body.
You had to say that.
It comes into play, it eliminates their power, and it deals them 1 damage. And that is just so often enough to kill something. So I think it's really, really good. I think B is definitely where it's
I hadn't really thought about this card in a very long time. But you are right, especially given since the last time we played it, the cube in general has gotten a lower stat line in terms of stat compression. We talk all the time about how good 1 toughness pingers are. This might be a card that we are supposed to come back around and try. I love flashy, tricksy creatures, and this is a flashy, tricksy creature. I love these sort of Cogwork Wrestler type cards. I think they're awesome. Yeah, you might be right. I mean, if you've got a couple of creatures in play, this can fog a pretty big creature. I could see there being some value even into the mid to late game here. This could be a card that I've been sleeping on that, like, our blue control-y decks have not been doing as well lately, and maybe giving something like this would be some juice for them to, like you said, not just represent, all right, it's either card draw or counter spell. Like, maybe they have something that can actually punish. Yeah, I like the shout. I hadn't really thought about this card in a long time. That's a good one.
I'm going to put it at top of E for now, but I definitely like it more than these other cards. I would probably put it into A, but I can respect that very few other people probably would. There's not a lot of people playing with this card, but I think you should. I think it's...
It sounds like based on my criteria, you would put it into A, but based on your criteria, you are forced to put it into B.
Yes, basically. All right, Flood Pitch Drowner. Do you want to do this one from memory?
Yeah, so Flood Pitch Drowner is one as a 2/1. I almost said one in a blue. It's a 2/1 for a merfolk. And it has flash, and when it enters, you tap target creature and put a stun counter on it. And then you can pay 1 and a blue and tap it, and you shuffle a creature with a stun counter on it back into your opponent's library. Oh, by the way, it has vigilance.
Yeah, card is very, very good. Any debate about this being
We run this in our mainline cube, and usually if I say that, pretty high opinion of the card. This card is really, really, really good. It might be better in our mainline cube there because there's less tokens a little bit. But yeah, this card's just fantastic. Like, it attacks, blocks reasonably well, like generates tempo while trading for like a 2-drop. Or if your opponent plays a big creature, this is like a way for blue to get out from under green 5s, kind of an instant speed. You kind of, when you first start playing it, read the shuffle away text more trinkety than it actually is. Like, I think this card, you actually do shuffle things back in reasonably often with this card. And it's not uncommon to get attacks in. And if you have any way of getting counters on cards, which is not by any means guaranteed in blue, but this does wear stats really well because vigilance is a broken mechanic for limited.
Yep. And then one thing I just want to call out, flash, thing that you can spend your mana on at instant speed, flash. That's one of the reasons why I'm interested in this card, because I think a lot of the cards we're going to put at SNA are flash playable cards.
Yeah, now that you're mentioning this card, the Pixie only requires you to cast a spell. Right? It doesn't have to be an instant sorcery, just a spell?
Correct. Just a spell. Yep.
Maybe I'll come up on that. Yeah, the Flash package, we've talked about the shell game in the mainline cube before. I don't know if we've mentioned as much in Peasant because I don't think it's quite as important, but like the more things you can represent with, X amount of mana in your cube especially, it opens up the amount of stuff your opponents are forced to play around, especially if once they know they're in your deck, but like good savvy players will be aware that those cards are in the card.
So there's a Aspiring Spike is a modern MTG creator that I like a lot and really likes to build rogue decks. He's always building new decks all the time. And he won a modern challenge with a blue-black control. And the whole conceit of the deck is it's basically just all flash spells. And it's all flash spells that cost 2 or 1 mana. And the whole point of the deck is just draw every single turn. And he has, Bowmasters, and he has counter spells, and he has Wan Chi Tong. He has, a lot of different effects that he can use at instant speed for 2 mana. And it just means that the opponent just has no idea, doesn't know what to play around. So I think that is very valuable. And that's why I think the next card fits well into this package really well.
Yeah, I do want to say that we've talked about, particularly in a more powerful environment, I do think there comes a point where you have to start considering whether that's healthy. Is it good to have an infinite number of options of things to do for 2 mana, right? To like if you get to a point where your opponent's like, all right, well, it could be a Flood Pit Runner, it could be protection, it could be Threnody Singer, it could be this combat trick, it could be counterspell draw, like whatever. It does sort of get you back into caveman mode of, well, you're just supposed to attack and like make them have it, which maybe that's a good thing. I personally am a believer of always make them have it, but like, I could see some people getting some serious analysis paralysis from that.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the people getting paralysis are more likely to be the people that are already invested. And do I care that much if the people that are invested have more to be invested in? It's like, that doesn't necessarily seem like downside. But sure, if somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I didn't have fun playing your cube because I just felt like there's so much I had to play around. Also, I would care more about that if blue was better. But for me, blue is like the 4th best color. And so it just doesn't bother me that much. But yeah, blue is dominating in your environment and everybody hates playing against the control player, then sure, think about this stuff. But we have another card that plays really well in this entire space that we've been talking about, which is Gleamer Gifter from Lorwyn. It's a 1/2 flyer, also has flash, and it says when it enters, you choose up to 1 other target creature. It becomes a 4/4 changeling until end of turn. Have you gotten to play it with this card in the retail draft?
I have not. No, I have not. Is it has it shown out?
It's interesting in retail just because sometimes making a creature a 4/4 isn't a positive. If the creature's like wearing -1/-1 counters, it doesn't necessarily grow it. It's like kind of odd. The turning into all creature types matters potentially a lot in the retail environment and won't matter that much at all for Cube. That being said, I think given this whole package of cards we've been describing, I think it's like extremely coherent. I don't know that it would get up to A for me yet. I want to see it a little bit more before I feel like I'm recommending it for the vast majority of cubes or for a lot of cubes.
Sure.
But I definitely think it gets into the same realm of Threnody Singer. I think it's a very similar kind of card.
And it's going to be sick to combine it with Threnody Singer and then make your Threnody Singer bigger and then eat the green creature. Let's go.
Oof. Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, this is a card I'm looking forward to playing. The Glamour Gifter for sure.
Yep. All right, and then another card kind of in a similar vein as these others, Cybo Cryptomancer. It is a 0/1. It has flash and it has backup 1. Basic idea is when it comes into play, you can put a counter on any creature you control, and when you do, that creature gains this card's abilities until end of turn. So, and the ability on this card is hexproof. So the idea is you play this. It's kind of like Plume Creed Escort in that you play this in response to a removal spell. You give your creature a +1/+1 counter and hexproof until end of turn. The downside is this is just a 0/1 body with otherwise no abilities, whereas Plume Creed is a 2/1 flyer on its own. So personally, I think that this card has been outclassed by the other cards we've been talking about. It doesn't have flying itself, which I think is a big downside. That being said, I don't think the card is bad. I think the card is actually very solid. It's a very cool card. Yeah. I don't know that I would put it in D, but it can't get to B range for me. It's got to be in C or D.
It is better than every card in D, and honestly, I'm gonna be real with you, it's better than like every card in the C tier too. Maybe stop it just below the one I haven't played. Like I don't know, I can't really rate that card. Cyber Cryptomancer is really good. The stat buff on it, the hexproof, really solid. Like, fantastic little combat trick. We played this in our Neo Kamigawa cube, which we haven't gotten a chance to fire in a very long time. Oppressive at times there, people have said, because, there you can pick it up in ninjas and stuff. But, like, just being able to break removal spells is inherently really powerful. It wins combat, even when you don't have those options, right? You can just give a creature +1/+1, and we talked about creature sizing. Your 2/2 now eats a 2/2. And a lot of times you line up even blocks in cube. So your 2/2 eats 2/2, 3/3 eats 3/3, whatever. Yeah, I don't see a reason to play this over Plume Creed Escort, really, because I think that card's just clearly better. But I'm not going to say Cyber Cryptomancer isn't quite good and probably should have seen more play than it did in the time between those two cards being printed.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to note is it's not strictly worse than anything else we've been talking about here, specifically because it puts a counter on something, and no other cards that we've talked about do that. And the fact that you can play this, put your counter somewhere, and now this is just sitting in play as almost an object. It's just like an object that you can recur, you can do whatever with. The problem with that strategy is that the full output on what you're getting here is not that impressive. Like, really what you're hoping to do with this is blow out a removal spell, and that's mostly it. Yes, sometimes you're going to win a combat with this, but that's not that common. So I agree with you. I think it's a very, very solid card. I think it's worse than the other options that we have, but it's still very functional. And I think you're right. People did not play it enough while it was the best at what it did. Yeah. So if we have Fear of Isolation, this is a 2/3 flyer. It is a enchantment nightmare, and as an additional cost to cast this spell, which is a downside, return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. It has flying.
How do you overcome that downside? It's got to be pretty good, right? You'd have to have a crazy stat line or something.
Specifically, the downside being the cast trigger, and I say it as a downside versus other Skyfishers in the sense that.
Oh, you're saying the downside is the okay? Yeah, I thought you were making a joke about the downside being you have to pick something up.
That's upside.
That's the classic. That's the classic core Skyfisher downside for the stat line you get for them.
Yeah, no, that very much is upside, but the cast part of it is downside. It's harder to loop this in the same ways that you can loop the white Skyfishers, but it's awesome. Very, very good card. What makes this good enough to put it straight into S tier, even though it does have the worst Skyfisher claws compared to the other Skyfishers, is it's a 2/3 in blue. Like, that's just so huge. Like, blue just does not get huge creatures. This is like, I think, other than this fake 2-drop that we have here, this has got to be the biggest creature we have on this whole list. Moon Circuit Hacker. This is a ninja. It's an enchantment human ninja 2/1. It has ninjutsu blue, so you can return an unblocked attacking creature to hand in order to just cast this for 1 mana. And it says when it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card unless this was the turn that this card came into play. So the ideal play pattern with this card is you play a flying man on turn 1. On turn 2, you attack with the flying man, and then you ninjutsu this in, you draw your card, you replay your flying man. If you do that, which is the ideal scenario for the card, it is essentially a 2 mana, 2/1 ETB draw card. kind of. That card is pretty solid. If that's actually what this card did, I'd be like, dang, that's a really, really strong card. Like we should play with this. 2/1 is really small. Number one. Number two, after you get that initial draw, it's like it is no longer ever getting through ever again. And to me, that is the problem with the card, is that you really, really need to get that ninjutsu ability off. Otherwise, it basically does nothing at all. So I played with it for a while. I really like ninjutsu as an ability. Shocker, it reminds of Skyfishers, but is a lot harder to use than Skyfishers. So I don't think I can put this above C, I'll be honest with you, because I think if I really had a ninjutsu theme, a ninja theme, if I had an enchantment theme, then yeah, I can certainly imagine playing this for all those reasons. But I just think we have better options these days, and too often I've seen this card just not do anything at all.
Yeah, this card is definitely a C. It is a good card, but it's a card that requires some support in terms of cube structure. This card gets better, did you know, when you pair it with the card's Suit Up and other cards with ninjutsu that can pick it up after you've dealt damage so that you can rebuy its ninjutsu trigger. So, I do agree with you. This card for like generic cube purposes is not good enough. It kind of just was when it was printed. It was pretty good. Just as a decent little dorky attacker. But at this point, you do need to get that extra bit out of it.
Yep. All right, moving on. We have the aforementioned, or previously mentioned it, Falafel
Archaeologist.
Yeah, very easy to say. Everybody knows what that is. It is a 0/3. And when it enters the battlefield, you can mill 3 cards. And I got this wrong, actually. I played in a paper event with my cube, and I was telling the person it was mill 4, and I was like, nope, it was definitely mill 3, which is less than 4. But you mill 3, and then you can put a non-creature, non-land card from among the cards milled this way into your hand. And if you don't, it gets a +1/+1 counter. So either a 2-mana 1/4, which is, bad, or a 2-mana 0/3 that potentially draws a card, which is, also not amazing. I think that this is a C for me. I actually play with this still myself. I've played I might have just taken it out, honestly. But I think that if you're playing around with the graveyard, if you're trying to seed some amount of ETB creatures into your environment for reasons why you might want ETB creatures like Soul Herder or whatever else, and I can see this card being a totally solid include. There's not a lot of cards on this list that do this sort of a thing of ETB kind of draw a card, kind of get value. The deck that I saw it in recently that I liked it a lot in was a deck with Essence Reliquary, where it was like, this card helped you find your reliquary, and then the reliquary could return it, whatever else. So I think there's some play to that makes it interesting, but I have a hard time giving it more than a high C.
Yeah, I think when you start doing that, there's also the risk of decking yourself that does come up, because this card does turn through quite a number of cards. I think this card is quite good. Actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this card has seen substantial constructed play at various points. But I think the cards in Peasant that I'm going to want to have in my cube section if I'm running this are the cards Treasure Cruise and Rise from the Tides. And I think if your cube is built to support those cards, and like Treasure Cruise is a super messed up card if you've never played it. Like, we don't run it because it's just obviously super messed up. So Philology Archaeologist helps you find your Treasure Cruise, helps you fuel your Treasure Cruise. Not quite as good with like Gurmag Angler, because then it doesn't find the Angler. But if you're playing any of these Delve cards, really, that care about the graveyard, you're carrying any of these cards that care about having spells in your graveyard, it's pretty good. I think it's a niche role player. That's a good place for it.
Even maybe in like a Final Days deck where you're not really ever intending to get a card off of this, but you're just trying to fill your graveyard as fast as possible with creatures. Sure. Like you want creatures that ETB and fill your graveyard up. I can.
And then it finds your Final Days if you do hit it, which is actually kind of a downside, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Oracle of Tragedy, which is a card that I've gone back and forth of a number of times.
Also known as the Sam Black World Championship card.
And that's one of the reasons why I think it might be worth including. So this is a 1/3 human wizard from March Machines. When it enters the battlefield or dies, choose one, draw a card, then discard a card, or shuffle up to 4 target cards with mana value 3 or greater from your graveyard into your library. And I'll tell you that line is one of the reasons why I struggled to keep this in, is that it needs the 3 or greater. But okay, so baseline, it's 2 mana for 1/3 that loots on ETB. That's not great, but it's not like, awfully embarrassing. There's other cards in my cube that do similar things like that. They do a little better though. This also gets it on death. The reason why I do think this actually deserves some consideration is if you find an archetype in your environment that is consistently getting close to decking, or often gets close to decking, I do think that this could be a way to give those kinds of decks, ways to loop when they're in those situations, ways to loop their deck that isn't embarrassing on the front side. The problem with so many of the cards that allow you to loop your deck is that they're just never, ever, ever getting played in any situation unless what you're doing is looping. And this card, I can imagine getting played in a Soul Herder deck, for instance, where you just want a decent ETB, then blue doesn't get access to that many good ETBs out of its 2-mana creatures. So I don't think the card's embarrassing. I also don't think it's great. I don't know where to rate it for that reason. Oh, and what I was gonna say is, the fact that it requires you to return a card that costs 3 or more means that you're really hoping to hit that bass song or something like that. It's like there's gonna be fewer targets for this when you actually go to loop your deck than maybe you would have liked to otherwise have. So that's like a little bit of a downside of the card. So I don't know where to rate it. I could see it in C. I don't think it gets above C, but I'm not really sure.
I want to say it probably is a D tier card if I'm being real. But man, I cannot tell you the amount of joy that this card sparked in me when I saw it printed. Like I have rarely fallen in love with a card as much as this one. I love playing like Turbo Fog, like, play your entire decks. Like, we're just here to draw cards. I'm not trapped in here with you. You're trapped in here with me type decks. And this card gave a dream. So I really, really like this card. I don't think it's very good, but I do think there's room for it. I kind of agree with what you're saying here of like, there's some space here where it probably makes sense that I think it can get into either top of D, bottom of C. That's sort of where I would want to.
I'm going to leave it top of D for now, but the last thing I'll just say is like, I have talked to other cube creators who think it's insane that any of my games go to decking. And I'll just say that like, when you have 2 really good players with 2 really good decks, and they're both mid-range decks, which just means they have tons of removal. They're lots of card advantage.
Yeah.
It's not that like every game goes to decking, but like there's been plenty of games where we're getting low in those libraries, and one player sees the fact that they have fewer cards and they have to act because of that.
I think if you stop and you're a high level player and you're analyzing your games, I think you would see that those come up more often than you probably, if you aren't really paying attention to that, start paying attention to that. Start paying attention to how often like you and your opponent are getting down to, 10, 12 cards in library. And both of you, like, you have to start making different game decisions. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I almost never do you actually really deck, but it's more like I have to line myself up so that I can win before I run out of cards.
Exactly. And the other feather in this card's cap is some people really like drafting the Sam Black style loop my deck. And so having just some cards in your cube that allow that dream to be lived might be something that your drafters really appreciate. Your mileage may vary there. So, yeah. Okay. Augur Bolas, very, very similar card to Archaeologist, and I think just almost strictly worse.
This card is a 1/3 that says clear the top of your library if you cast Brainstorm last turn. It doesn't have any other text.
yeah, good point. So it's a 1/3, it's a Merfolk Wizard, and it says, when it enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant or sorcery from among them, put in your hand, and the rest on the bottom. So similar to Archaeologist, however, doesn't fill your graveyard. The only advantage really that this card has over Archaeologist is that when it hits, it's a 1/3. Whereas when Archaeologist hits, it's an 0/3. Mm-hmm. This hits way fewer cards, and it doesn't fill your yard. So for me, I think you should not play this card in your cube. I think it's a D.
I've mentioned it a few times. I've told you before that I was a bit of a blue-white control aficionado when I was when I played Constructed, right? That was kind of my jam, was just playing bad blue control decks. And I was playing Magic in Return to Ravnica Standard when this card got printed the first time. I cannot tell you the number of times that you bricked on this card in your deck with like 25, 30 spells out of 60. And whatever you think the amount of spells you need to feel good about this card hitting is, it's not enough. I have missed with this card, blinked it with a Restoration Angel, and missed again. Like, the damage, the emotional damage this card has done to me, it is not getting out of D tier. It has been here the whole time, just waiting to go there.
The joke, the other joke is, when this ETB is, you take the top 3 cards of your deck and you put them on the bottom of your deck.
That's what I meant by clearing it's the brainstorm clear. That's all it does.
Oh my gosh. All right, on to other cards that aren't very good. I did play with this for a while. This actually has similar energy to Oracle of Tragedy. Yeah, so this is Cunning Castaway, I want to say is the first word in that title.
Yeah, it's when it dies, you mill 3, and then it has like Disturb, turns into a dude.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is a 1/3. A 1/3. And yeah, when it dies, you mill 3 cards. It has Disturb for 5. All that means is you can cast it from your graveyard for 5. So it has some graveyard synergies if you're just doing a graveyard thing. On the backside is it's a 3/4, so 5 mana for a 3/4 with flying. And when it enters, you can shuffle up to 3 target cards from your graveyard into your library. So to me, a lot of similarities, honestly, with Oracle of Tragedy. I don't have a strong preference for either one, except for the fact that, like I said, I think you can justify Oracle in like a graveyard deck in general because it does loot, both on ETB and death. I think you can probably justify it in like a soul herder deck just because it has a solid ETB. And I think it's harder to justify Castaway in those decks. But in like a graveyard focus deck, I think this gets a lot better because this is now actually a thing you can cast from your graveyard that's like kind of reasonable. And similar to Oracle, it helps you not deck. It helps you loop a little bit. So I think it's pretty similar. I think I prefer Oracle probably slightly, but I think they're pretty similar cards.
What not having an ETB does to a dude, like this being a death trigger is so bad. I think there's quite a big gap between this and Oracle. I think like I like Covetous Castaway. I think it's a cool card, but Oracle is like fringe playable. I think this card is pretty soundly in the not playable camp for the most part. I think outside of very, very specialized environments.
That is fine with me. We could use some more Ds anyways. So next card, Labyrinth Guardian. This is a very cool card that no one plays, and I think they should. This is 2/3. It's a 2/3 Illusion Warlock, I want to say, warrior or something. And it says, when it becomes the target of a spell, you sacrifice it.
Yeah, because that Phantasmal.
And then it has Embalm for 3 and a blue. You can exile it from your yard to create a copy of it, except for it is a token zombie.
I actually think this card is really cool, and when it came out was pretty powerful. I think it's still good. Like we mentioned, or decent. I think we mentioned earlier, we were talking about the stat lines on blue creatures being really small, and this card is pretty big for a blue 2-drop. Add on to the fact that if like you incidentally mill it or loot it away, you get a little bit of extra value, or if you just kill it later into the game, but one of the downstream things of struggling with object creation is that objects give you things to spend your mana on, typically. And so blue actually, funny enough, at Peasant struggles quite a bit to keep up with cards because you have to spend your mana on cards to get cards, whereas your opponent spent mana on tokens to get cards.
Yeah, cosign totally. Like the inability. This is the reason why. One of the reasons why objects are so valuable is because objects in play are more easily convertible in general into cards in your hand or trading with your opponent's cards than a card in your hand is. So it's like if I have a food in play and then I have something that says sacrifice an artifact to deal damage or sacrifice an artifact to make a 3/1 or whatever else, versus if I have a card in my hand that I have to then spend mana on that maybe puts an object in play that I'm then trying to convert into resources or whatever else. Right. That's a real problem. And I think that's one of the ways that blue struggles a lot in Peasant is it really struggles to put cardboard on the battlefield. It's really good at getting card advantage, but actually getting cardboard on the battlefield really struggles with. And this is one of blue's better ways of doing that is the Guardian. That being said, I played it for a bit in my cube and just nobody played it. It's not clear where you're supposed to play this exactly. It's like, it's kind of a roadblock a little bit to aggro decks. So you could see it as like a cheap creature for a more attrition style blue deck. But I just was not getting it, seeing it played. So I still wouldn't give it lower than a C because in my mind, if you have a graveyard theme at all, I think you definitely should consider this. I think it might be better than a C, but I just don't have enough experience with it in cube to know whether it's good enough. I'm just saying, like, I think that the phantasmal text is largely fake. Like,
yes.
What spell is targeting your creature that already wasn't killing it anyways? I guess Playful Shove dominates it.
It allows your opponent to occasionally convert like some random combat trick into a removal spell, but like whatever, who cares?
Oh, also Playful Shove doesn't dominate it because the spell fizzles. They don't get to draw the card. So it's like
I think one of the cards that I do want to comp this to that I think is maybe a reason why moving forward you wouldn't play this card is Phantasmal Shellback is a pretty solid blue 1-drop, and it draws a card on its way out. So it's only a 1/3 for 1. It's a 1 blue mana for a 1/3 that when it's targeted, it dies, and when it dies, it draws a card. And that card just is a little easier to convert than this card is. But I do sort of think that there might be something to this, like blue needing better stat lines and this card being like, weirdly enough, I would like to see a 2026 version of this card. I would like to see what we get the next time they take a shot at this sort of template of like, value card with big stats, but like fragile.
But yeah, I think it has some home problems, some cube equity problems. Unclear exactly where you're supposed to play it. So I'll leave it at top C for now. We might do some rearranging going back.
Yeah,
but I think
I'm with
there
you
might
on
be a
that.
hidden gem there.
I like this card a lot more than I don't think I've ever really seen it in other people's cubes, but I do really like the design of this card. I think it's got some promise.
Okay. Next we have Scrounging Sky Ray. This is a 1/2 flyer. It has cycling for 2. And it says whenever you discard 1 or more cards, you get that many +1/+1 counters onto Scrounging Sky Ray. I've been playing with this card for a fair amount, or for a while now. I added it as soon as Aether Drift came out. And it is a very cool card that gets played essentially as a support piece in either blue-black, in Grixis style decks, either blue-black or blue-red. That's basically the only place that it gets played, and it's basically just a support player there. That being said, I think it's a totally fine support player there, so I think it somewhere between bottom of B or top of C is where it belongs. I was hoping that it would be better than that, and it would be maybe a pull, and it would start to get up into this level. It just hasn't been that way.
We played it for a little bit, and we're pretty disappointed by it. This card just, unfortunately, even when it does the thing too, it's never really more than stats, which, there is a point where stats just matter. But I think the biggest problem this card has is I think to really enable this card, you already have to be doing good things. Like if you've got a looter in place so that you can trigger this card, then you don't really care about this card because the looter's already increasing the odds that you win the game pretty substantially if it sits in play.
Yes, I would say the one caveat there is the fact that it has cycling itself. If it didn't have cycling itself, then yeah, I would be on like D tier or whatever. But the fact that the decks that it goes in, those decks are going to generally like the fact that this can cycle itself. Like I see this cycled almost as much as I see it played, and I think that is actually like a boost for the card, not a downside. So, but I think I hear what you're saying. I don't think it's a world beater. I haven't been overly impressed with it, but I like the discard strategy, and I think that this is a nice signpost that you get on the wheel.
I think I would say this is a solid C card. Like I wanted it to be better than that. Yep. So decent card, really cool design. I think it's a card that could age really gracefully too. This could be a card that in like a couple of years we're talking about how crazy it is now.
Next is a very similar card, Fairy Vandal. This is a 1/2 flash flyer it's a Fairy Rogue, and whenever you draw your second card each turn, this gets a +1/+1 counter. This for me goes straight to D tier. It'll take a lot for me to move it out of D tier. Unlike Sky Ray, this does not have cycling, so all it does is be a creature that grows. These style of cards just aren't it in 2026 now. Compare this card with Knowledge Seeker, which also grows on every card you draw, and then when they inevitably kill it, because they have to, this gives you a actual value on death.
We have Thopter Engineer in D tier, and this is worse than Thopter Engineer.
Yeah, this card is just not very good. If you're in a very, very low removal, low interaction environment, this gets way better. Anything else to say about Fairy Vandal? I see this card, by the way, everywhere. This card is all over the place. This is the Johnny's Pride mate of this video. People play this everywhere. This
is getting got by Flash. Flash is only good if it does something. Like this card doesn't get you with Flash. This isn't what was the one? This is, I think it's in the same set. Wasn't there a 1/2 in the same set that's like one of the little punkia kind of guys, the cogwork wrestler guys? It's like it has like Flash and it's like -2, -0. Play that card. That card's way better.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Agreed. Brian Bourne Cutthroat is a 2/1 with Flash, and whenever you cast your second spell during whenever you cast a spell during an opponent's turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So, comparing Cutthroat with the new fairy that we got over here, the fairy, similar text. Whenever you cast a spell on your opponent's turn, this surveils 2 versus getting a counter. People surveilling 2 is way better than putting a +1/+1 counter on your thing.
Also, flies. Surveil 2 is not a dead card.
Sure, but you can maybe argue the Flash versus the flying. It's like whatever. But all I'm saying is that the value that this generates persists after the card dies, and the value that Cutthroat provides you does not persist after Cutthroat dies. Very, very bad. Similarly as bad as Vandal.
It's like I feel it's in every other Peasant Cube I see, and this card sucks.
Yeah, so one thing I just want to say is I'm not even sure that I would say that these two are the actual worst Peasant 2 drops. I'm going to keep them here because these three cards to me are the ones that I want to clearly state from us. Don't play these cards.
Yeah, these are the bad cards that show up all the time.
A little speculative card, Veteran Ice Climber. This one's from TDM. It's a 1/3 with Vigilance. It's a human scout. It has this creature can't be blocked. That combined with Vigilance is a very interesting combination of words. And it says, whenever this creature attacks up to one target player, mills cards equal to this creature's power. So I think generally speaking, that's going to be mostly targeting yourself. Mm-hmm. So in like a graveyard, in a deck that cares about your graveyard, then you're milling yourself for at least one every time. Vigilance, as I've said many times recently, is a busted mechanic, and the fact that blue is getting more and more and more vigilance, I'm here for it. Can't be blocked is like, it just gets to always get in. I mean, in some ways, it's almost like the black cards, the 3 mana 2/3 that ETBs and drains them for 2, or the 1 mana class enchantment or saga that drains them for 1, and then turns into the 2/2 Akiba Reckoner Raid. It's kind of like an Akiba Reckoner Raid in a way to me, in the sense that like, they're not going to kill this. You're going to play this, and it's just going to attack a couple times. It's going to get in for a point of damage and a point of damage, and it's holding back their 1/1. So the reason why I'm adding this is this was a huge overperformer in TDM, and it has all the words on it, the kinds of words on it that I would like my 2-drop to have in Peasant. I've never played with in Peasant, so I don't have a strong opinion on it, but I think there might be something here.
Yeah, you brought this one to our attention because I'd kind of, I didn't really draft TDM much. I decided very quickly I did not like that format. Yeah, this card has all the makings of like a really annoying disruptive card. This is easier said than done in blue, but if you can get a +1 counter on this thing, we're really cooking. Then you've got a 2/4. I mean, like the mill is like whatever, like that helps fuel treasure cruise and other cards like that. That's really cool. It's a nice little incidental thing. But like jumping up from a 20 turn clock to a 10 turn clock and a 3 toughness blocker to a 4 toughness blocker, pretty big deal. So if we can find a way to get some extra stats on this card's like obviously gets really astronomically better because of the keywords on it. But honestly, just as like a decent, like you said, a decent little dude who like chips in and maybe, you know, gives us a little bit of value out of the graveyard. Like I think there's some promise here, but I've never played this card before in Cube, so I can't really comment on it beyond that.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it by the Unwelcome Sprite for now, because these are 2 cards that I think could be decent that I just don't know yet. Coming to the end here, okay. Invisible Stalker, another card that I see all the time.
Can I give a little rant about this card?
Please.
This is one of the dumbest cards they have ever printed in the entire history of Magic the Gathering. I hate everything that this card stands for. And if you put this card in your cube, you are a bad person and deserve to have your cube curation license revoked. Okay? This card is miserable. It is the most miserable card WotC has ever printed. I don't care what cards I've said that about before in the past. This card is the one that gets Teld angry, okay? This card is stupid. It only exists to carry equipment and then be completely uninteractable. Why? Why does this card exist? Please, never, ever, ever play this card again. This is the stinky poo-poo F tier we need.
See, the problem is you're only speaking about the side opposite the Invisible Stalker. What about the side who has the Invisible Stalker? That side's you're having fun on that side.
Until you don't have your equipment, and then you have a 2-mana 1/1 with no text on it, and it sits in play and chips in for 1 damage a turn while your opponent plays real cards. This card's stupid. Yeah. This card is dumb. This card has been dumb. It is my most hated Magic card since the moment I saw it. It's one of the It's one of the earliest sets I played in. It might be the first draft set I was around for that came out. And I cannot tell you that I only feel this rage because this is from when I was like 20 and I could still feel this sort of thing. And that hatred is still there, okay?
Okay, so the only thing I want to say about this is that I can imagine a cube that is playing Invisible Stalker and Storm Chaser Drake as like blue targets for the white-red heroic stuff that I want to add to my cube, or like the Naya heroic stuff that I want to add to my cube. I can imagine a cube that wants to play these. I just don't think it's really worth it. I think you probably should still avoid doing it, even if you don't have such negative feelings and emotions about this card like Teld does. I still think it's probably just not worth it. Like your opponent is doing anything aggressive and you just can't play this. It just doesn't do it unless you have specifically, you're like on a 360 cube and you're playing like the lifelink equipments. That the whole trick here is you play your soccer, you put a lifelink equipment on it. There's no naturalizes in the cube and you're just trying to drain them for 4 turn. But that doesn't seem very fun.
Would it be really miserable if maybe in the same retail set they printed a piece of equipment, they gave a really big stat buff, and then gave a certain creature type that maybe this unblockable card had lifelink? Butcher's Cleaver is so stupid. Okay, that whole deck, you're getting me flashbacks. These are like non-flashbacks here. I swear to you, if I'm playing your cube and if I'm playing your Peasant Cube and I open an Invisible Stalker, I see it at the table, I'm all F4ing and getting out of Discord.
Half of the people listening to this podcast weren't alive when Innistrad came out, yeah. All right, let's move on. Next card is Oh gosh! Again,
Prankster.
pick lock. There we go. There's
It's
lots of keys.
it's 1 in a blue for a 1/3 flying vigilance creature, and it has a 1 in a blue instant ability. I don't remember the name of it, but you mill the top 4 cards of your library, and then you may return an instant, sorcery, or a fairy card from your graveyard to your hand. Did I get all that right?
Yes. And one thing to note there is that, like, we're getting maybe thanks to Lauren, we have a fair number of fairies going now. So like there might start to be some kind of a fairy thing happening. I don't know if you really want to. I'm not sure what reason you'd have to do that, but
it's free upside if you do hit a fairy, because there are some playable fairies. This card's good. This card's good. How good? I like this card a lot, actually. All the things I mentioned about Philology Archaeologist and like having vigilance and flying, and like, we talked about the last adventure card not really being worth it, but like this one, instant sorcery has definitely gotten work.
This is Augur of Bolas, that when you miss, you don't feel as bad because you get to play the creature afterwards. Yeah.
Also, like, getting to look at an extra card here and mill them, like all the upside here does end up coming up. I think this card's B tier. I think this is a B tier card. We don't have enough cards in B tier. I think maybe you could get this into A. Like, I think I would not be shocked to ever see this in somebody's cube, because it fits so well into a lot of what blue has historically done. The more you are committed to the game object thing, the worse this gets, and that's why I've got it at B tier, because it's not free. When this card was printed, or when we were first putting this card, it might as well have been like you don't miss, right? Like you're going to have enough instants and sorceries. I can see worlds now where you're playing stuff like the submarine, and you're playing stuff that doesn't trigger this off this card. I don't think I can go above B because of that, because I get the most powerful cards available. I think you're kind of dealing with things that this doesn't hit, but I do think this card's really good. Vigilance and flying is a great combination on a 2-drop to chip in damage.
Yeah, my hot take is that I think that instant and sorcery synergies have largely been relegated to non-optimal anymore. Yeah. And so that, for me, the concern I have around this card is that it tricks your drafters, because they see it and they're like, oh, instant sorcery, there must be an instant sorcery deck. And then there's not in my cube, and I would argue there probably shouldn't be in a lot of cubes. That being said, a lot of people love instant and sorcery synergies, and so a lot of people are doing those in their cube, and if you are, then this card's great. Yeah, so I think B is fine, but like personally I would put this in C, just because I don't really think you should be, what you said before, where it's like this plays a lot worse in the object space. It's like, well, yeah, I'm saying you probably should be on the object space, and therefore this becomes more of a niche role player, but it's probably very good as a niche role player.
Yeah, this is like, I think outside of niche role player, I think this is good role player for the kind of space that you wanted in. I will say, even with us being pretty committed to game object space, about half of our blue section, a little under half, is still instants and sorceries. And especially in your more control-y decks, you sometimes run quite a number of like counter magic and things like that. So I do think this card still has decent home, but I will say this card has slipped, in my personal opinion, quite a bit over the last like 2 years.
All right, last card, Peligir Survivor. This is a personal favorite of mine. This is a 1/3. And it says tap, add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana only to cast instant and sorcery spells, or you can base 6 mana and tap it to have target player mill 3 cards. Similar for me for Prankster, both of these cards have come out of my environment because I'm off instants and sorceries as a theme. I think non-creature spells is a totally fine theme to have, and you will play lots of non-creatures, lots of instants and sorceries there, but it's just hard for me to guarantee a deck have enough instants and sorceries specifically to run either of these cards. If you are in a cube that cares about instant sorceries, I think this card is actually very solid. I would move it up, kind of probably in this range up here. I think like if you have that theme going on, play this card. I think this is a card that's underplayed, given its strength, assuming you have a cube that cares about instants and sorceries.
I really liked this card in Lord of the Rings draft. That was one of the weird formats where being a 1/3 was better than being a 2/2, because of the way the ring worked. I really liked this card. I thought it was really cool. I've never really played it in a cube context. I can buy that if you're doing instant sorcery stuff, which you probably shouldn't be committed to, that this is pretty good. Part of what I like about the Prankster is that like digging 4 deep is so much that if you're playing a reasonable density of instants and sorceries, you'll probably hit one. Having to have one in your hands a little more committal. But
the specific reason why I like it is it doesn't add blue; it adds any color, so you can use this to splash your Fear Fire foes, or what have you.
Cool. That is cool, admittedly. Yeah. So this is where I think we're going to let's see if there's any changes.
Let's real quickly, yeah. So I like these 5. I think I like this. I could imagine bringing one of these up to A, maybe. I just don't feel strongly about it. I don't really. Again, the only card from A I would put to S would be this. Anything in S that you would move down to A, I guess, is a question.
I would be. This is tough because I think I would rather have a smaller S section than A, right? But I kind of agree, and this is maybe where I'm gonna step out of like some sort of forced distribution and talk about like if you look at this cube, this specifically, if you remember the white one, it was pretty well rounded because white has a lot of really solid creatures. Blue does not. Blue, a lot of these cards we spent time poo-pooing, and I think it's indicative that blue is very bottom loaded, and then the best blue 2-drops are all like heads and shoulders above the other cards.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. And that's one of the reasons why I was excited to do this tier list specifically is it's like, I think I'm much more clearly and forcefully able to say, play all these cards. I don't care about all these cards. You know, it's like, none of this matters. These cards are way, way better. And one of the nice things is if you're in an environment where you're like, I really don't like object creation, still play with Mystic and Messenger just because they're so sweet. But no, you know, the rest of these are largely just kind of like, you know, bread and butter. You know, they're not, you know, token spamming all over the place.
Yeah, if you're not doing the object thing, maybe you could argue that you could lower fear a little bit or like something like that. But like, I think even then, like we talked about the stat line, even if it's not like an upside necessarily to be picking up, even if it's like designated upside to be able to pick something up, like fear is just a good stat line. It's a really solid card.
Well, one thing we didn't mention with fear too is that like in an aggro deck specifically, a common play pattern with fear is you play it to pick up your land. Yeah, because you want to, you know. Anyways, so all right, real quickly, B here. I could imagine some of these top of C cards getting up to bottom of B. Like for me, I wouldn't mind doing like this, maybe even all the way to this, but I just don't know. Again, I don't know enough about these cards here to be sure.
I think I would definitely call the line at Moon Circuit Hacker. I think that card is just a little underpowered if you don't have ways to push it through these days.
Okay. I'm gonna maybe move this down too, just because I think the promise on this is clearer to me than the promise on this. I'm not exactly sure how I'm using this yet. Whereas this to me is like pretty obvious how I'm using it.
I think the future is brighter for the Skyray than a card like the Veteran Ice Climber. I think the kind of things that you need to make the Ice Climber good are less likely to occur than the things that the Skyray needs to be good.
Yeah. I mean, Skyray in general just needs discard to be a theme that you're happy to run in your cube. And given, you know, this card and given this card, and like there's just a lot of really powerful looters that they're giving us, especially in red as well. And in that space, again, this card is good not because of the top line, but because of the cycling. And so I think this card is always going to be solid in those archetypes, whereas I'm not sure that Veteran Ice Climber is always going to be solid.
And I want to put Picklot Prankster at the very bottom of B because I do think this card is like, I think there is some opportunity cost to running this card, even though we're still on it. It's probably coming out in our next update. In like the ECL update, I think we're probably going to end up swapping off of it for the reasons we mentioned. That even though I do think it's a rock solid card for what it offers, I think what it's offering is inherently less powerful. Are there any? I know you're a big fan of Threnody Singer. Which of these 4 cards up at the top of B, like the upper half of B, which one of those do you think are the most likely that you would bump to A? Threnody Singer?
Yeah, not even close. Thanks card's awesome.
Okay. Yeah. I think I would be more likely to do the Feet Fairy, but I haven't played it, so I haven't played either of these cards enough, and I would like to play with them because they're the kind of cards that I've grown to like drafting a lot more as I've gotten older, which are cards that like, you know, impact the board and just like let you get the game over with. Yeah,
from that perspective, I like this, but the 1-2 versus 1-3 is a big difference in style line. So I don't know. I could see either one. I could see both. The truth is, I probably wouldn't suggest everyone play both of these cards. Like I could imagine a lot of cubes, especially at 360, that run one or the other because they have some similarities to them for sure.
Yeah, and I do like the Benevolent Revert Spirit, but I won't go past B because this is fake. This is fake. Fake 2-drop, not real.
Yeah, fake 2-drop. Yeah. All right, this official tier list. There it is. It's done.
Yeah. Cool. I like it. Very bottom heavy. That makes a lot of sense. Let us know in the comments what you think. I mean, I liked having this discussion about these cards. I'd be interested to see if there are people who are going to have wildly differing opinions on us. If you're still listening, thanks for making it to the end here, and hope you come out and play if you're not already playing with us. Remember, you'll be able to find the link to the Discord in the description of the video. You should also be able to find links to our socials. So I stream on twitch.tv/Teld Talk, as well as a YouTube channel of the same name. And you'll find Daneelius over there on the Limited Level Ups Discord server.
I'm going to try to include in the show notes or in the description here a link to this tier list so you can do it yourself if you care to. And yeah, come play Peasant. Peasant's awesome.
Yeah.
Play all the time. Come to the Discord.
Yeah, we hope to see you there. Also, remember, you can see me and Daneelius as well as Tim and Chris, all co-hosting the Jank Tank. Not always together in different combinations, but usually we have Daneelius on for Peasant and Chris comes in for the mainline episodes. So yeah, make sure you go check all that out, and
we'll be back with Black 2 drops.
Yeah,
soon.
Black 2 drops on the horizon.